The views and opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of Natural Bridges Media or KSQD's staff, volunteers, or underwriters.
You're tuned in to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner on 90.7 K-Squid. This is your host, DJ Dupsie. This is our premiere episode, and Sunday Dinner aims to feature a variety of voices in the Monterey Bay area, particularly BIPOC voices, queer and trans voices, voices of women, and voices of people who have been underrepresented or pushed to the margins of our community, society, or what we could call mainstream history. Now, you may be wondering, if the title of the show is Sunday Dinner, then who all has a seat at the table? And to that, I would say, what we aim to do with this show is to take it beyond the literal and proverbial table, to bring the conversations to where we are, where we live. So Sunday dinner doesn't always have to happen at a table. It can happen on a beach, in a forest, in a park, at a corner cafe, in the street. And so really taking the concept of Sunday dinner and broadening it outside of the proverbial and literal four-sided table. Several themes that will be central to Sunday dinner include intersectionality. All of those identity groups and communities I just listed earlier, they don't function in a silo or independently of one another. All of our social, spiritual, and political stuff, it's all connected, and we're all connected. Storytelling will be another central theme. Reconnecting to ancestral narratives, telling stories from all perspectives, multiple perspectives, engaging with the meta-narratives, the stories within the stories, stories about the nature of our existence, space, and time, and healing the intergenerational trauma, talking about the medicine, talking about our responsibility, talking about dream space and rest. Joining us on this pilot episode for our first flight will be Georgia Ilono and Alexis Rodriguez. Georgia is the lead intern with the Roots of Traditional Foods and Cultural Practices program at UC Santa Cruz, a program that aims to connect land-based education with mental health and wellness for Black folks, Indigenous folks, and people of color. Alexis is going to talk to us about their work at the Seymour Marine Biology Center and the Earth Day themed drag show they hosted recently. Under my voice is the song Boat Cruise by Thundercat, and this is from the album The Golden Age of Apocalypse. Once again, I'm DJ Dupsie, and you're listening to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner on 90.7 K-Squid. Welcome everyone to the Sunday Dinner. This is our first episode, so thank you for joining us. I'm DJ Dupsie, and joining me today in the studio are my guests, my friends, community members, Georgia and Alexis. So we'll start maybe with our appetizer, so to speak. We'll just have our two guests introduce themselves, and we'll get into why they're here today and what they're here to share with us. So Georgia, why don't you just give us a brief intro about who you are and what brings you to this area?
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. My name is Georgia Iluno. I'm a fourth-year legal studies major and a Black studies minor at UC Santa Cruz. It is my last year, so I'm studying to become a lawyer within the next couple years.
Great. And Alexis, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and what brings you to the area?
Hi, my name is Alexis Rodriguez, and I am a fifth-year student at UCSC. I'm currently pursuing a double major in biochemistry and molecular biology and marine sciences, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. So we'll start with Georgia. So I understand that you are the lead intern with the Roots of Traditional Foods and Cultural Practices program, which is a program on UCSC campus which aims to connect land-based education and mental health and wellness for BIPOC and identified folks. And so to start off, could you tell us a bit more about the Roots program and why you sought out this opportunity?
Yeah, so like you mentioned before, Roots connects BIPOC mental health. And for those that do not know the acronym BIPOC, we serve Black, Indigenous, and people of color on campus. And we connect mental health with land education to help students understand different ways to heal from generational traumas or heal from the stress of society or just heal from other mental health issues as well. We also learn about different ways how our exposure to plants and nature can help us take a step back from being overwhelmed and better ground ourselves with the gratitude of the land. And we also learn about community building, storytelling, and other decolonization practices that help us appreciate the land in a greater way.
Yeah, so when you saw this opportunity, say, for example, I guess maybe in an email or on a bulletin board, apply for this Roots program, what made you initially apply, just based on what you knew about it at the time?
Yeah, well, when I first seen it, it was something new that a new program that I've never seen before at UCSC, which is what sparked my interest to apply. Considering it's my last year, I always want to, expand my horizons at UCSC and engage in practices that I had never done before. Growing up, I never was really into farm work, or maybe I just never really understood the importance of being connected to the land. And I feel like Roots was a perfect way to help me learn about that and also, connect it to my ancestors and also learn more about my culture and how they utilize plants to, better heal and, connect more to their community. And community building is like really big for me. I just think about, historically, African Americans were meant to be separated, especially at a university, especially at a university where, I often felt isolated, many times when I came to UC Santa Cruz. And, whenever there's programs that kind of encourage that, it kind of influences me to get involved and see what it's about, and also, reach out to my other community members so, they can not feel that sense of isolation. And also, land education is a good part to incorporate, community building and the whole grounding experience as well. And it's just something that I want to experience in addition to, let my other community members know about it too as well.
Thank you for that. So many good things come up, but I definitely want to get to what kinds of topics you all have been discussing in the Roots space, because I understand that there's a regular meeting on Wednesdays, and then you have a Hands in the Earth Praxis Day, if you will, on Fridays. And so, if you could share with us what kind of topics you all have been discussing in those Roots spaces and what has been meaningful to you in these curricular and praxis spaces.
Yeah, so we cover a lot of different things at Roots. Initially, we talk about different opportunities to help us get involved in the community and show up to each other's events. Events based on like identity consciousness or maybe just farmland work. Of course, we had farm days bi-weekly. We visit the Black Lives Matter garden on campus and also the College 9 Gerald garden as well. And that kind of helps us, and that honestly, visiting the farm is my favorite part about Roots because, like I said before, it is not something that I appreciated. So because, I just immersed myself in it, amongst the other Roots interns, I started to find like the joy in taking care of the farm, taking care of a place that, we benefit a lot from. And it brings me joy, when I, even just something as little as de-weeding or learning about the way plants grow, why they grow. And that brings me a lot of comfort, just knowing that, we walk on this grass, we use these plants, so why not appreciate taking care of them. And also we talk a lot about, land back topics. Like we had a event where some indigenous people talked about land back appreciation and how we can better appreciate the land that we benefit from, and how we can also transform the educational system to kind of indoctrinate the perspectives, and also just being intentional about land use. Because when I think about environmental conservation initially, I just think about just taking care of plants, period. But it's also kind of the education part too, like being appreciative and taking your time out to learn about the land as well. We talked a lot about, the concept of work too, which was really interesting to me. The main crux of the concept of work is to think of work because we want to do it, not because of the wage. And, of course, that definitely connects to taking care of the land. Think about taking care of the land because you want to, you appreciate it, not just because, it's just something that, you reap benefits from, or like any financial gain from. And also, I also think about like the concept of work as like it relates to being a student at UCSC, work or school work or any type of work that you conduct at school. It can be less meaningful, when professors may show lack of appreciation or lack of care. But like when work is more intentional, like when we know why we're doing the work, how it's going to benefit us in the future, we're not so much, I guess, like, we're not harmed if we do something bad or if we get a bad grade. It's better if we learn from our mistakes than just think about the grade, think about, what does it mean to do schoolwork rather than just to get a good grade. And I think that will make us more inclined to engage in work that's more meaningful. And then we also talked a lot about how, like, abolishing work too, like allocating energy towards meaningful parts of our life, because a lot of times we spend so much time working 9 to 5s and we lose time with our friends and family, and we get so normalized to that and don't realize, that is something that really benefits our mental health, that actually helps us come to work when we have things around us that makes us happy. But when we spend too many times or too much of our time at a job where we don't really get rewarded as we should be, we may not put as much thought into it. And, there could be different forms of work. Taking care of your mental health can be a form of work, but that's not something that in society we're rewarded from. And one of my favorite things that I'll end with that we talk about in Roots is elements. We talk a lot about how, the different elements, connect to land conservation and land appreciation, like water, fire, air, and earth. And there's some times in Roots where we talk about, which element do you connect the most to and why? And this may seem like a simple question, but, it kind of helps us get connected to each other more, because we did this exercise with all the interns and staff, and we each had our own element that we identified with, which kind of help us understand each other more. Like for me, I chose water just because, when I changed my diet to become a vegan, I started being more conscious about what I eat and what I put in my body. And I learned that, like, water is not only something that you drink, but it is nourishment. And I find that, when I drink it, I feel more energy, more will to do a lot of things. And, it's just something that is always going to be there. And I also connect to it more just because whenever I feel stressed or overwhelmed, I go to the beach. And I really like the sound of water. It brings me joy. It brings me comfort. The ocean is calming, and I'm also very religious. So I just think about when you appreciate the things that God made, it just makes me feel more grateful about life and grateful just to be here, period. So yeah, I encourage others to do just element activities. Just think about what part of the land that you feel most comfort in, and it's just a type of reflection piece that really helps at Roots.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner. This is DJ Dupsie. You're listening on 90.7 K-Squid. All right. Thank you, Georgia, for those amazing insights, and definitely some things I want to circle back to. And I want to bring Alexis in. So, Alexis, you work at the Seymour Marine Discovery Center. Could you tell us a bit about the Seymour Center, just in general?
Yeah, so the Seymour Center is a marine education center / visitor experience center that is located at the Coastal Science campus at UCSC. Visitors can explore touch tanks, live animals, and it focuses a lot about the natural rich environment of the Monterey Bay. You get to learn about conservation efforts that are happening at UCSC.
Awesome. So now, I understand you had the idea of having a drag show at the Seymour Center, not just having a drag show at the Seymour Center, but particularly on Earth Day, correct? So what inspired you to want to bring those two elements together, and what do you feel the impact is of inviting queer and trans students to Marine Biology Center to learn about the importance of ocean health while also participating in this, I guess you could say, quote unquote, traditional queer experience?
Yeah, definitely. Combining a drag show with Earth Day may seem a little bit unconventional, but it was powerful. It was a powerful way to bring attention to the intersectionality of issues that affect our planet and our communities. The drag community has a long history of activism, and inviting queer and trans students to a marine biology center such as the Seymour Center, we can create an inclusive and diverse learning environment. And many LGBTQ plus individuals struggle with social isolation and discrimination, particularly in the STEM fields, where they're often underrepresented and undervalued. So I thought of by creating this like welcoming and inclusive environment for these queer and trans students at these marine biology centers, that their interest in STEM and other activities could like flourish.
Awesome. So this amazing drag show happened, right, on Saturday, April 22nd. So unfortunately, folks, if you're listening, this already happened. Oh, I'm sorry. If you were listening thinking like, oh, wow, that sounds really cool, I want to go to that. Unfortunately, it happened on Earth Day, Saturday, April 22nd. So catch us same time, next year. But Alexis, how would you describe the energy in the center that night? How did the audience experience the space? What happened? Do you think that made it special?
Oh my God, the energy in the room was intense. It was so electric. It was very what's the word I'm looking for? It was just amazing. Like, there's no words that I can use to describe it. You just had to be there. And it was so great seeing all these different backgrounds, all these different individuals that were coming all for the same goal of not only like loving and caring for our planet, but for the yearning of needing spaces like this, and I just, like you mentioned, hopefully this is something that happens every year. We are in the talks of like talking about how we might be able to broaden it so that it doesn't focus just on like UCSC students, but also like the community of Santa Cruz, and maybe like expanding it so that we have more space so that we can cater to more people. Because we hosted it in the La Feliz room, which is the area where we have a lot of our events. And the capacity for that room is 200, and we had over 300 people trying to cram up into this space.
No way.
Yeah.
No, we did.
Yeah, we did, which I thought was incredible, because honestly, in my mind, I thought we were going to have at most 40 to 50 people. But when that ended up happening, because originally we had like an Eventbrite page to kind of keep tabs on how many people wanted to come, and it like booked within like the week. So definitely in the talks of maybe having it in the parking lot so we can have like different stages, kind of give it like a concert vibe where you have like different stages where like you get to pick where you want to go.
Or even like a music festival vibe almost.
Yeah, like a music festival vibe.
Awesome. All right. Well, I definitely want to hear more about that. I want to pivot back to Georgia to get back into the roots. Roots aims to, like I mentioned, right, have these praxis days, hands in the earth days, right, about every other week, as well as hosting public spaces for folks to engage with this work of land education. And so why do you think this praxis and community engagement element is important to the Roots program?
I definitely think it is really important to the community building aspect. Like I mentioned before, coming to UCSC, I did feel a lot of feelings of, isolation, and it did take a toll on my mental health. And it was very difficult to find, different ways to kind of deal with how can I ground myself at this university. There's so many resources, but, where can I look? And I feel like Roots provides kind of like a unique space, with, the farm work that we do every week. That is vital, different environment where students like me can kind of better utilize, the plants and the nature to connect to something that, is central to them, and, not something that can be taken away. And I feel like it's another way to kind of show gratitude to yourself, even though you're taking care of a land that maybe we did not create. It is something that we benefit from, and we share from, we share fruit and bear fruit from. And I see, like, even when I do the farm work with my interns, like, it seems like a sense like I'm thanking myself. I'm showing love to myself by taking this time out to care for myself.
Wow.
And also, taking care of a land that, my ancestors worked so hard from, and which is often ignored many, many times. And one last thing, I do have a large connection to lavender, and I never really understood, like, honestly, like, Roots really made me understood lavender more than I ever thought I could understood it, because it's just a smell that I always kept in my room. I always bought, lavender essential oils, because it's just something that it just calms me. It helps me sleep. Just like, the smell just does something to me. And, when we talk a lot about elements and we visit the farm a lot, I see a lot of lavender. And, when I learn about the growth, I learn about where it came from. It makes me more appreciative of it. And it makes me want to include it more in, like, different parts of my life, not just, having the oil, but, normally should recommended that I keep a little plant of lavender with me. And, that also makes me appreciate myself more, taking that time out to care for myself, because, the land is for us, so we should utilize any other way to incorporate it in our lives. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Georgia. Again, if you're just tuning in to 90.7 K-Squid, I am DJ Dupsie, and you're listening to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner. We're here with my friends, Georgia and Alexis. And Georgia, you're sharing with us about your experience with the Roots of Traditional Foods and Cultural Practices internship program. And one thing I just want to circle back to real quick is you mentioned the joy that you feel when you're either in the curricular space or in the garden space, but particularly in the garden space. And so given that one of the goals of Roots is to connect land education with mental health or wellness, could you just speak a little bit about that joy and where you feel that comes from and why you feel that's important to tap into in this time, in this space?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I feel joy when I, reach the farm, just because I just feel like it's a part of our lives that, is constantly ignored or just not acknowledged. And I think just for me personally, because it's something that I never really engaged in, something that I feared. And, I finally, discovered the beauty in it and how much it could bring so many community members together. Because when we do work on the farm, like, it's not just us, like, it's other people that work on the farm, or, other classes and other students that, share this joy of taking care of the earth and, the land that we constantly reap benefits from. So it's just also just being around that same type of energy that, wants to share the joy of, I guess, taking care of the plants and also taking care of ourselves as well. And I just feel like the farm is a place where there's no stress or there's no assignments, there's no, like, arguments, there's no yelling. The only thing that you probably hear is the weeds or the grass And, for me, that is what brings me peace when there's no distractions. And we're all focused on one thing. And, that thing is just to improve ourselves while also, thanking ourselves and thanking the land for, what it has done for us. Because, UCSC is on a bunch of nature. It is on a bunch of plants, when some of the curriculum in Roots talks about how, before things were built inside of forests, there was a variety of different animals that used to like roam, like bunnies and animals that we don't even see anymore. But because we have like contaminated the land so much, we don't see the beauty in it as much anymore. But I feel like Roots reminds us that, we can still, it's still there, and we could still replenish it by putting our hands in it, like our ancestors used to do. And, maybe that time will come. Like, maybe the animals will show their faces again. Maybe we'll discover things that we've never have, that nature could provide from us. And I just also think about, when I learned about, how our ancestors, like, a lot of times hunting was very expensive. So they utilized, like, I guess medicine purposes and food purposes all solely on plants. Like, they survive solely on plants, and they survived for a very long time. And it wasn't until we added all these other things where we kind of forgot about that. And I do want to connect to that because, plants are something that will always be there. Nature is something that will always be there. Animals will always be there too. But, in my opinion, we can appreciate them, from a distance, and kind of relearn the ways that we could benefit things that, land education is free, like, and it should be common knowledge. We should know where things come from, like from the roots. And I know that's just something that I feel like is what I needed in my life. And it just brings me joy to know that other people are on the same page.
Thank you for that, Georgia. Yeah. So, Alexis, I'm going to come back to you again, and going back to the Earth Day Drag Show on Saturday, April 22nd. What do you think a night like that means in the light of national conversations and emerging legislation targeting at oppressing the queer and trans community and literally suppressing drag show performances? What do you think a night like this, bringing together these two elements of Earth Day and drag, what do you think it means in the light of all these conversations and legislations?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's something extremely important to be able to create these safe space for trans and queer youth, but the queer community and trans community in general. It's definitely a beacon of hope, and it lets individuals know that, there's resistance happening for a lot of these legislations that are ongoing that are, trying to take away these basic rights to queer and trans individuals. Sorry, I got distracted. But yeah, no, it's definitely extremely important. As drag has been becoming very mainstream with things like RuPaul's Drag Race. We have drag queens appearing in things like the Met Gala. They're appearing in musicals, and on Broadway and things like that. So because they've become such not overnight sensation, but because they're having so much time, in like social media and on these platforms, they're obviously becoming a target for these legislative actions. And unfortunately, it's something that pains me, and it hurts me to see all these regulations that are happening that are not only targeting the people in my community, but also myself as well. As someone who is queer and identifies as non-binary and, wants to pursue something in drag, it's definitely scary to know that you're not welcomed in a lot of these places. And it's nice to know that the Seymour Center was able to open its doors and be able to create this amazing sense of belonging and community, even if it was just for a night. And like we said, hopefully this becomes a yearly thing, and the legacy of the Earth Day Drag Ball April 22nd lives on. But yeah,
folks are still talking about it.
yeah, no, folks are still definitely talking about it. And it's definitely really, really heartwarming to hear like all the stories that I've been hearing about the experiences that people had during that day. But yeah, it was definitely a night to remember.
One experience, right, was that a couple of our scheduled performers, and I say our because transparency, folks, yours truly, DJ Dupsie, was the host of the Earth Day Drag Show. So I'm speaking from the inside perspective. A couple of our performers scheduled didn't show up that night. So we decided to open it up to the audience for an impromptu drag karaoke style kind of situation. And so what do you feel that this added to the night? And do you think the audience participation should be a staple part of the event moving forward?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a curveball when a lot of our performers didn't show up, and it definitely put into perspective that, you know, we were still this was like we were a very young event happening. It was our first time, and you know, like when we did our debriefing, we went over like some things that we can do to better prepare for situations like that. But definitely opening it up for the audience, it was definitely a surprise factor where we weren't really expecting it. We didn't know how it was going to go. It could have gone either horribly well or horribly wrong. And thankfully it went really well. Everybody really enjoyed it. We had a bunch of different performers that went up. They were just doing their own numbers. And it was nice to see all the different backgrounds and all the different like stories that were being told and like the performances that they were doing. But yeah, it was definitely unexpected, but definitely added that wow factor to it. And it made it a little bit more intimate, you know, because when you have performers that you don't really know, you're there, you're having fun. But when you see your own friends or your own like partners or your own like family members even performing, it definitely adds that intimacy factor. And I definitely think that this is something that should continue on in the next drag events that we have. Probably a little bit more better managed because unfortunately, because we were time constrained, we did have to turn a couple people away, which breaks my heart. But the fact that we had that,
there was so much excitement.
Yeah, there was so much excitement. People really wanted to perform, and the fact that like wanting was there, it puts it into perspective, like how much we really need these spaces and how much we really, really need events like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was beautiful to see the students from campus and then also folks from the community all be there together, right? And bringing those two communities together because often, yeah, it can be hard given that UCSC is, you know, up on the hill, you know, and so, it can be very difficult sometimes. And so it was great that we got to bring those folks together for that night.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, you know, since UCSC is like a community of students, you know, that aren't really from UCSC, you know, they're from different areas throughout like either the state or like the country, even around the world. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to be able to create that space for the students at UCSC, but also hopefully in the future we can also open it to the community because realistically speaking, the students at UCSC are also part of the community of Santa Cruz. Exactly, even though we tend to like put ourselves into these little like separate spaces, but I think moving forward we definitely have to unite ourselves and say, you know what, we are Santa Cruz, we are UCSC, we are the Seymour Center, you know, because isolating ourselves, I mean, you can't put yourself into separate categories and try to like, I mean, when you think about
build community.
Yeah, you have to build. Yeah, you have to build a community. When you think about it, like, you know, tying it back to Earth Day, you know, we're definitely trying to let people know that regardless of your background, regardless of your sexual orientation, of your gender identity, we all have to come together, you know, to protect this beautiful place we call our home. Mm-hmm. You know, regardless of like your religious views, your political views, or whatever. Like at the end of the day, we need to remove that aside and focus on what's really important, which is like preserving the beauty of nature, you know?
You know, I like to think that all the time we spend arguing, if we don't have a planet and environment to argue in, what are all the arguments worth?
Exactly.
Thank you for those insights and perspectives, Alexis. Georgia, one more question for you. So how would you connect what you're experiencing in the Roots program to your overall experience of being a student at UCSC at this point in time and space?
Yeah, so Roots was one of the many community organizations that I was involved in, student-based, that I was involved in at UCSC. I've been a Black Academy mentor. I was a Moja coordinator. Moja was the retention program for the African, Black, and Caribbean students on campus. And I created a lot of events and programming that contributed to their retention and to, their academic excellence and, their social excellence and financial aid as well. And I really enjoyed being involved in programs that encourage BIPOC representation and retention at UCSC, because I didn't realize how important it was, till it happened to me. And, it was very tantamount and like significant for me to constantly pursue an education at UCSC, to have a community and to have someone or something that I can relate with. And, it just became like almost addicting to just always gravitate towards these type of opportunities that improve, BIPOC and specifically for my identity, African American mental health, just because, there's not a lot of us at UCSC, and that does bother me a lot. And it does always like permeate my mind why it doesn't bother, administration. But, that is, I guess it's up to students and student-based organizations to kind of fix that problem and, use our own experiences to help others. And like, like I said, like it's my 4th year at UCSC, and, being a student and being a student leader, and also identifying like as an African American woman, I've had like experienced, lots of pushback from administrators and, professors, just because, I feel like my treatment, it differs from, the general student population. And, there's been a lot of times where, I had to kind of, report professors for the way that, they have spoken to me or they have treated my organizations. A lot of administrations have told me that, some of my events aren't that important, that improve the retention of African Americans, but that is what pushes me, to keep doing this work, because, I'm trying to really directly come up with a solution to an ongoing problem. And as students, unfortunately, it's really up to us to do that. And, the programs like Roots and, other student-led programs that I engaged in really enforce that, these spaces, it seemed to not be created for BIPOC students historically and systemically. And when students continue to engage in these programs, we occupy the space. We occupy, spaces to encourage other students to, I guess, resist, all the pushback or all the things that they make them feel isolated or make them feel unwanted. And Ruth specifically, amongst all these things, I often forget about my mental health, and I feel like a lot of students may do as well. Student leaders, we, deal with a lot of, different factors when it comes to organizing, from administration, from students, and taking care of other people. You forget to take care of yourself. And Roots was like kind of the first program that I engaged in that really reminded me that, that's kind of the most important thing that, we should focus in our lives, because that helps us put more energy into things to help others, things that I actually genuinely want to do. And Roots taught me like to use land education, to use self-care as something valuable in my life that, I want to keep doing. And, Roots taught me like how to use land as a resource, that also helps me improve my confidence. It's something new that I've learned that I could share with others, and something new that I could really feel confident in, influencing others to do. And, Roots also taught me to, to take time out of, grounding myself out, away from all the
busyness.
Yeah, all the busyness and like all the practices that the university kind of pushes us against the wall to, not really want to be a confident or a successful student leader. But, Roots gave me access to like an education that I feel like was never really shared with me. And, we always talk about like hidden curriculum, but, why does hidden curriculum even exist? And, I feel like roots is something that we should all know, and it shouldn't just be a program. Maybe it should just be a class or a required course to take. Students should be able to, BIPOC students especially, should be able to find out different ways to take care of themselves, because this is a program that I look forward to every week, because it does make me feel really good, to learn about something that I've, never really dabbled in until being a lead intern. And, there's different ways, Bruce taught me, there's different ways to seek knowledge, to seek refuge, to seek self-care. Maybe it's not just your counselor, maybe it's just going outside, or maybe it's just learning about the land more. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Georgia, and thank you, Alexis, for sharing about your experiences. We actually have today on Sunday Dinner, we'll have a surprise seconds. We'll have some seconds. Some friends of mine came to join me from the Black Men's Initiative, as well as the Farm and SUA. So if you're just tuning in, I'm DJ Dupsie. You're listening to the Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner on 90.7 K-Squid. Welcome back to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner. This is DJ Dupsie on 90.7 K-Squid. So we have a special treat for you tonight. We have a second helping, a second portion. So some surprise guests that I'm so grateful join me today. And so I'm going to have them introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll get into some discussion. So let's start with you, Ariel.
Hello, Squid community. My name is Ariel Silva, or you can call me Ariel. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm a second-year critical race and ethnic studies major, also minoring in Black studies. I'm coming to you all as a community organizer here on campus, and I'm in spaces such as the Black Student Union, Sinai, which is our indigenous org here on we're not here on campus, but my voice is carrying on to campus right now. Sinai, I work with the Cultural Arts and Diversity Center in Rainbow Theater as an outreach coordinator. I also work in the co-curricular activities office of College 9 and John R. Lewis, and also a few other spaces, as well as being steward of the Black Lives Matter Garden, which I'm going to be discussing with you all today. So I'm honored to be in this space, and I'll hand it off to the other folks I'm in the show with today.
Yeah, this is Dion. I'm a fourth year marine bio major. I'm the BMI mentor, Black Men's Initiative, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Dubsie.
Yeah, excuse me, sorry. And my name is Corbin, and I'm a third year film and digital media major. Pronouns he, they. I'm also a BMI mentor for Black Men's Initiative.
All right, thank you all for being here. So we'll start with you, Ariel, and the Black Lives Matter Garden. I understand you're the CUIP intern. And so what inspired you to get involved with the Black Lives Matter Garden, and what has that involvement meant to you thus far?
So for folks that don't know what CUIP is, that's the Chancellor's University Internship Program here on campus, and where many offices or many orgs have interns that get paid through a year-long program, and it teaches us skills to be adaptable, versatile in many aspects. And my particular internship this year is in the Black Lives Matter Garden that's located in the Calf's Farm. And what inspired me to get involved with the BLM Garden was seeing the work that was done in it last year. I've always been connected to the land, as I have Afro-Indigenous roots, and so I wanted to make sure I still carried on that connection, and fortunately applied for the position and got it. I still think I'd be involved with the BLM Garden regardless, going to work days and involving myself in the land, though I was drawn to the position, and I've been honored to serve as a steward this year.
So the show wouldn't be Tackling the Taboo if we didn't tackle a little taboo. So I understand there were some recent layoffs at the farm, right, on UCSC's campus. Can you tell me a bit about how these layoffs have impacted the dynamic at the farm?
So it's been such an exhausting and such a laborious time for folks on the farm. So for folks that don't know, there's sometimes what's called, in quotation marks, a reconstruction that's done to certain offices, done to certain programs, or done to complete entities on campuses, and in which they'll probably try to do a rebrand and try to say like, oh, this new place is going to get a nice and shiny look. And that also means that they're going to be firing some staff, maybe reworking some positions and putting more labor on other folks. And that's exactly what happened on the Cass Farm. So my two mentors of the Black Lives Matter Garden, Kelly and Alex, were fired, were let go very spontaneously. And so we had to do a year's worth of work, essentially, in like half of a quarter.
Wow.
And so we had to work really hard to do like some background information, because those were the last two folks that existed on campus that know the extensive history of the Black Lives Matter Garden, of all the liberation work that's been done in the space, of the collectives, individuals, and stewards that have worked there to keep it alive. Because the Black Lives Matter Garden exists out of resistance. It exists to be there for BIPOC students, to be a place where we can mourn, we can experience our sadness with one another, we can be in community with one another while also experiencing joy, laughter, happiness, and come together in a space that's meant for us and that was built for us by students that were also struggling, right? It's a direct resistance to what the institution of the UCs does in totality. And so it's been really taxing on my body, both mentally, physically, and spiritually, that I had the two people that cared for the space the most and also cared for me on this campus and cared for all of the African, Black, Caribbean students, all the Latinx students, all the Indigenous students and queer students on campus, to be stripped from me and to have that, like, now I'm carrying on next year, because thankfully I'm staying on as another steward next year, that I'm going to have to take more of like a mentorship role in carrying this history with me, in which I wasn't expecting.
Maybe a little sooner than you thought.
A little sooner than I thought I would. And so it's disheartening that we've had to fight, and like there's a beautiful event coming up this week talking about anti-colonial land stewardship and working with the Center for Racial Justice and having this open conversation of the effects that this had on campus and on students like me, student workers that are on the farm, and that like we're doing double the work, or like more than our bodies can handle. The farm is overgrown, like our cover crop this season because of the rain was monumentous. And cover crop, for folks that don't know, system that was done by so-called the Peanut Man, George Washington Carver, designed cover crop to pull nitrate out of the soil, and so it's also a way that you can combat weeds. And there was so much cover crop and not enough people, because they decided to lay off not only 2 staff that worked in the BLM garden, but also other staff, so about 5 people in total.
Wow.
And that the rest of the staff that's left on the farm are having to take on their jobs, in which it's not enough jobs for just a handful of people to do. It was done by double those people. And I also think it goes to show, like, my mentors weren't equitably paid. They didn't have enough resources to work with. And I think it's telling, because most of the BIPOC staff that worked on the farm are the ones that got laid off. And so it's so tiring. I've been put in another space that I have to exist, and that fighting actively. And like, one of the consequences of losing my mentors is I was cut off from my budget. I've had no access to my financial analyst. I've had to fight to barely get like $300 worth of POs for this quarter alone, and to fight to keep me on for another year, just because I'm harboring so much more knowledge that if it's lost with me, it could be lost for generations, and that can't happen in this space, right? We have so much that's written and so much that's told orally, and that once the removal of certain individuals happens, cultures are at risk of being lost. Like, spaces that house people safely for our humanity to exist on this campus can be stripped away from us. And so that's what I'm trying to combat, and that's what a lot of communities stepped in, like Georgia mentioned. Norma Alicia, she's one of the folks that's been helping fight for the space. Linnea Beckett, who works with Praxis, another a beautiful org on campus, also a teacher, have been heavily helping me in this process of fighting for the space, and lots of community organizers, teachers, staffs, students have come in and try to support the garden and its mission, and to keep it, and like also know what it means to like break down the systems of, you know, should even the BLM garden exist in the Cass farm? What if we what if we make our own farm? What if that happens? What will they do without us, right? And so just some of those things always floating around. That's what this year's been like.
All right. So Dion and Corbin, I want to pivot to you, all right, in connecting, right, what Ariel's been bringing up about the importance of a Black Lives Matter garden space, for example, but also the importance of mentorship that Ariel was just talking about, right? You all serve as mentors within the Black Men's Initiative. So could you tell us a bit about the Black Men's Initiative and what inspired you all to get involved as mentors?
So I'll start out and speak on my inspiration to be a part of it. So when I came as a first year, I was a part of the mentees, right? And coming in as a freshman, I didn't know really anything about the campus. I just knew that, you know, it looked nice, right? I didn't know how to get in touch with anybody, especially my culture, my people, as, you know, Black people. And just being a part of the program really, it gave me a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging on the campus, being in touch with everybody a part of it that year. Then I wanted to give back in a sense and be the mentor. So as a mentor, basically we meet with our set mentees every week, right? And then we just talk about how they're doing and give them little bits of advice for anything they're going through, and just be there for them. That's essentially what we serve as. We're just people to talk to if they have any troubles, right? And then we have different purposes in the program as well. So I'm personally the marketing lead. They're the marketing lead. And then we have a professional development. We have academic success. We have community engagement. So we're really...
All right.
Yeah, we're really rounded.
All right.
In, our purposes for the program. Pass it off to...
Yeah, for me, I came in 2020, and that was the pandemic year. So that first year, the pivotal experience, being a freshman, not really getting to be on campus, not really getting to, see anyone, let alone a black face. And that time, is around 2.3% black population at the school. This year it just hit 5%. Wow. So the motivation for me to join, was to find these faces. If I can help the first year, that got the opportunity, that's a plus in itself. But, just getting active. And in this, program, this cohort of men, it's expanded beyond just the first years, we get the first years, but then we've got, the transfers. Who technically count as their first year on campus, and then after that we've got like the alumni that come back. So we've got these graduate students. We've got these fifth years. We've got second years, and so it's just really the engagement. And he's talking about Dion. He's talking about the different roles. I'm the professional development role. So my role, engaging with this space is making sure that each black man on the campus that's in the cohort is, developing professionally and understanding what they need to do in a professional space. But that the motivation that I had is to build that community, to make sure that it's not too taboo for every face on the campus.
All right. Well, I know you all are probably itching to hear more from Ariel and from Dion and from Corbin. Unfortunately, we got to cut our Sunday dinner not short, but we just got to say, farewell for now, right? And we'll bring it back again, hopefully very soon. And so
somewhere
there's got to be dessert, right? We always got to leave room for dessert, right? And so if you've been enjoying what Ariel and Dion and Corbin have been sharing thus far, definitely listen in the future for when we come back to the table for Sunday dinner. Once again, I'm DJ Dupsie. You've been listening to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner on 90.7 K-Squid.
Thank you so much. We definitely will have you back and invite all of you back, and sort of talk about the program should be back on the air, and maybe the individuals as well, I hope. And thank you for a great pilot program.
Thanks for having us.